Hello and welcome to our presentation. My name is John Jones. I'm the Director of Innovation at the 4 RGS Worcester Schools, and it's an absolute pleasure and delight to be presenting and talking to you at JNUC 2022.
My name is Matt Warren. I'm the Head of Computing and Digital Learning at RGS The Grange, and it's an honour to join you for this session.
So, the RGS Worcester Family of Schools, they have origins going back to the 7th century, and we claim to be the 7th oldest school on the planet. We were originally founded by a chap called Bishop Bozel in 685 AD, and from its early origins in the heart of the city of Worcester, our school is now spread across 4 sites, including RGS Worcester, that's the senior school where I'm currently recording from. We also have RGS The Grange, which is one of our prep schools. We have RGS Dodderhill. You'll see why there's a slight hesitation there because it looks very similar to the other prep school, which is RGS Springfield. RGS Dodderhill is the newest member to our family and is a girls' school from year 7 upwards and a mixed school below that. But all 4 schools share a wonderful combination of unique distinction and shared heritage.
And I'll just start by apologising in advance for any Latin speakers out there for my terrible pronunciation. I can tell you the RGS Worcester School motto, Respice e Prospice, stands for cherishing the past while looking to the future. And although we're certainly incredibly proud of our ancient traditions, we like to think that the classroom practice has moved on somewhat from the schemes of work implemented in the 7th century.
And never before was that more apparent than when in 2014 we launched our digital learning programme. This meant that all pupils from year 5 to year 13 across all of our schools were able to bring iPads into class, whilst those from reception, which is nursery, to year 4 were also supplied with a school-owned device. Furthermore, all our teachers were kitted out with an iPad, an Apple Pencil and a MacBook. And we know that having 2 devices for teachers is a luxury and not something that all schools can facilitate. And certainly, if you work in a school, it's definitely worth considering conducting some research to find out the best pathway for you. Now, when those devices arrived at the family of schools, we didn't just hand them out in the hope that somehow they would work and learning and teaching would be positively affected. Indeed, just dishing them out is kind of the worst thing you can do when adopting technology, and you'll know that in business as well as in education. And I'm certainly a little concerned at the moment that post-COVID, many schools have got digital devices but haven't really thought about long-term digital strategy. Loads of devices were bought, but without that strategy, there's little hope of a genuine shift in school culture. And we're already hearing stories about many of those new devices simply gathering dust in cupboards.
Indeed, for digital technology to be fully embedded within school culture, it takes a lot more than just procurement. But what exactly is school culture? Well, one common theme about it that academics and school leaders will almost unanimously agree upon is that culture is notoriously hard to define. This definition from Rossman and Corbett and Firestone summarises it best for me. Indeed, when applied to adopting iPads, the end goal should be normalisation of digital technology as an everyday standard practice, where teachers and pupils don't use devices because they have to, but because it makes sense to do so. The advantages should be obvious.
Furthermore, most school leaders, teachers and academics would also agree that despite being very hard to define, culture is one of the most significant concepts within education. The quote, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast," is attributed to educator and management consultant Peter Drucker, and it summarises the importance of culture nicely. To be clear, he didn't mean that strategy was unimportant. rather that a powerful and empowering school culture or business culture was a surer route to educational success. Indeed, having worked myself in a variety of different schools across a variety of different sectors, I can confirm how different school cultures are and how widely they can vary, from leadership styles to priorities to behavioural expectations. The differences from school to school are truly remarkable and can mean entirely different experiences for pupils, for teachers, and also for parents.
And another common theme upon which there is consensus is that school culture is inherently difficult to change. This, of course, is particular significance when adopting iPads into school. They represent real change to the ways that things are done, and therefore a real challenge to established cultures.
For example, does anyone remember Blockbuster? Certainly on UK high streets, Blockbuster was everywhere at one point towards the end of the 20th century. But I remember distinctly queues of people waiting outside to grab the latest VHS release, along often with a huge bag of Maltesers. However, when the practice of watching home videos shifted, Blockbuster failed to change their business model. They refused to take on the challenge of cultural change and ultimately failed because of it.
On the other hand, businesses that have been both willing and able to change those norms and practices have adapted and thrived. Consider, for example, Jamf, our wonderful host this afternoon. Since 2002, they built and adapted their business model. Jamf's production portfolio now includes identity and authentication management, endpoint security, and education-specific mobile device management. The culture of continual growth, development, and outstanding customer service has meant they are now the go-to choice for Apple ecosystems, and certainly at RGS Worcester Family of Schools.
Therefore, despite being hard to change and difficult to define, the good news is that, as Jamf have proven, is that culture can be learned. Indeed, over here in the UK, according to Forbes, more than 70% of British firms claim to have changed their business model in response to the coronavirus crisis. However, only half of those firms believe these will be for the long term, whilst only a quarter anticipate some of them will be permanent. Do these changes present temporary shift or long-term cultural change? Only time will tell. Either way, it is essential for schools to realise toxic, negative, stagnant cultures do not have to be permanent. There are always ways to learn, which means in turn, with the correct approach, the cultural shift to digital technology such as iPads being normalised, highly regarded by stakeholders, and used as standard practice within your organisation can be achieved. Let's take a look at some of the key strands involved in this.
So this diagram is based upon the dimensions of change, an academic approach to managing change. There's 6 columns, each containing a key component that needs to be considered. And we'll start on the left-hand column and the first to consider. So, vision. A vision should provide inspiration and spark ideas around what can be possible. It can be used to excite staff about what they're working on, igniting their creativity and driving their desire to collaborate. Without a vision for your iPad adoption, confusion is inevitable. Consensus. Consensus means broad agreement amongst leadership and amongst staff. There needs to be shared ownership and understanding behind the vision. There needs to be a consensus of approval towards the adoption and willingness to achieve the vision. If the majority of staff are not on board with your iPad adoption, it's likely they will find as many barriers as possible, and your plans could fail. To get consensus, the value of an iPad adoption needs to be made clear, as does the pathway to achieving it. Skills. Continual professional development is another key strand here. It needs to genuinely be continuous, but also adaptive to change and ideally use a variety of different approaches, such as workshops, mentoring, and coaching. Indeed, it will ultimately be a teacher competency that defines the progress of reform. It is up to the leadership to ensure that CPD is ongoing, bespoke, high quality, and sufficient time is allowed. If staff are given the iPads and expected to use them in class without knowing how to do it, anxiety levels are likely to be through the roof. Incentives. It's unlikely you'll be able to offer teachers a cash bung for getting stuck in with an iPad adoption. However, the incentives for teacher buy-in should be a demonstration of advantages an iPad adoption will result in. It can also include reduced workload, increased efficiency, more opportunity for meaningful creative learning and immersion in digital ecosystems that mirror the real world. Furthermore, I can honestly say I've not used the photocopier once in 2 years at RGS Worcester. What more of an incentive could a teacher actually want? Without knowing the value of the iPad adoption and what difference it will have on learning, there will naturally be resistance to the planned scheme. Resources. Without the necessary resources, an iPad adoption will be doomed to fail. This doesn't just mean iPads for staff and pupils. It also means holistic and future-proofed infrastructure that ensures safe and secure access to the internet, dynamic mobile device management systems, and indeed, time. It means considering budgetary plans, making them affordable, manageable, and sustainable. It's a responsibility of leadership to make sure these measures are provided. Without this, staff and pupils will be left frustrated and demotivated. Action plan. Now, this is the strategy that Peter Drucker referred to. And note, it's one of the elements required to successfully change culture. With any successful journey, there needs to be an ambitious but achievable plan with specific objectives that can be quantified. Where do you want to be in 5 years? How will you actually take the steps to achieve it? Without plans for development, you'll find the adoption gets caught on a treadmill and will be unlikely to progress. At RGS Worcester, having ensured all these strands have been carefully monitored, our digital learning programme is working. Having profound effects on teaching and learning, it's now firmly embedded in school culture.
Indeed, our vision is simple and clear: to provide an outstanding education through meaningful innovation. Furthermore, it is clearly articulated in our digital strategy. Our digital strategy also clearly lays out our basic workflow, a resource that helps all our staff understand the expectations of our digital learning programme. The diagram shows the basic workflow, which is the same across the RGS Worcester family of schools. Take a look at the diagram. You can see on the left-hand side, we've got Apple Classroom, which is our classroom management tool. And then if you move to the right in the green section, it shows you the workflow between teachers and students. And notice Jamf features heavily with students and with teachers, as it is the buffer that we have that keeps learning happening in a safe and secure environment. We also use Shobi, which is, I think Matt once coined the phrase that it was the glue that kept the DLP together. We also use Google Drive, so we're not exclusively Apple everything. We use the tools that we think are best for certain tasks. And the yellow box are productivity tools for teachers. And each school and each department, and sometimes each year group, will customize that box to put in the specific apps that they use. For example, the history department will use a different set of apps to science. Below that, you'll see there's a transformational box in the red box, transformational learning, and they are the apps that pupils use as well. And again, think about the different apps that are used with Key Stage 1, which are the younger children, right up to Key Stage 4, which are the older children. They're not the same. So we try and customize those boxes as well. But the key part of this is that workflow in light blue and green. And look where Jamf features. Without Jamf, we would be concerned that learning is being negatively affected by outside influences. With Jamf, we know that isn't the case.
Of course, we need to ensure that our teachers are able to use the technology. A key strand of our CPD is Apple Teacher, which has become a fundamental part of our CPD, and the uptake demonstrates how it's the norm to have completed the qualification and a demonstration of consensus. All new staff are required to become Apple teachers within their first year and receive a certificate and email signature as recognition. Although it is worth remembering that Apple Teacher forms just one of the rich offerings of CPD opportunities available across our 4 schools.
We also gather data on the importance of our digital learning program to everyday practice across our 4 schools. This in itself provided a very interesting insight. Firstly, it's incredible to see just how important teachers regard the digital learning program as part of their everyday practice. Use of their iPad, MacBook, Apple Pencil is second nature and simply an essential part of teachers' everyday toolkit. But another very interesting piece of feedback was the fact that RGS Dodderhill teachers saw slightly less importance in the digital learning program. This came as no surprise, as Dodderhill only joined the RGS Worcester Family of Schools 3 years ago, proving that permanent cultural shift is not something that can happen overnight.
Furthermore, any scrutiny of our curriculum would see countless opportunities for pupils to express their knowledge and understanding in colourful and creative ways. Indeed, the Everyone Can Create and Everyone Can Code curricula from Apple has proved to be a real use here. From our prep schools to our senior schools, the possibilities afforded by digital technologies are embraced whenever they add meaning and engagement to learning.
Our ability to shift to remote education provided further evidence of the extent to which digital culture helps to form the very fabric of our schools. Although the schools were shut, the schools were by no means closed, and from day one of the first lockdown, all pupils received their full timetable of lessons, access to co-curricular clubs, and ensured the continuity of learning. The accolades you can see in the presentation are testament to efforts of all our pupils and all our staff who were able to use digital technology so successfully during a very challenging time.
Furthermore, in March this year, we were visited by ISI for a full inspection. The report had this to say about the DLP. I'll just give you a minute to have a little look at some of the quotes that we gathered from our Independent Schools Inspectorate.
And whilst you're looking at that, it's a huge compliment to all the staff and pupils that were involved in the inspection. It's a 3-day process that the schools endured. And to have that sort of feedback that you can see on the screen about the DLP, as well as everything else that we're not going to be talking about today, but we got excellent in all areas. And clearly the cultural fusion of the DLP into the school was noticed by those inspectors, hence those comments. So, subsequently, on a walk around any of our four schools, which you're all invited to, by the way, if you're ever in the UK and hanging around near Birmingham in the West Midlands, please do get in contact. We'd love to show visitors what we are all about. And if you did come to our school on any given day, you would see digital technology being used across the curriculum, across the key stages, and as a fundamental part of everyday teaching and learning. Not in class all the time. We're well aware of screen time. We're well aware of the importance of getting outdoors onto the sports pitches, into forest school, etc., etc. But where those iPads and where the curriculum using digital technology adds genuine meaning to learning, you will see it happening in any given classroom and at any given time.
Our digital learning program is now deeply embedded within our school culture. And the question that normally gets asked about a digital learning program is no longer why,
but what next? And the culture of innovation means that we persistently seek new and better ways to improve outcomes for staff and pupils. For example, we're currently exploring the possibilities afforded by artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and virtual reality. All these emerging technologies promise a lot of things for education, but we are constantly searching for meaning. And we have managed to use all three of those new strands of digital learning in certain parts of the curriculum, but by no means are they something you'll see all the time, every day, simply because we are still exploring them. And when we find the meaning, that's when we start to utilize the tools. But I'd like to pose that same question to you. What next for you? What next for your colleagues? And what next for your school? Where are you on your journey to EdTech adoption? And what do you need to do next to ensure it is successful?
So thank you very much for listening. I hope that's given you a glimpse into the RGS Family of Schools and our journey with embedding school culture. So my name is Matt Warren, and thank you very much for spending the time to out of your busy day to listen to us.
I'd also like to reiterate Matt's thanks. I'm John Jones. It's been a pleasure talking to you all. And please do get in touch. I'm sure the contact details will be in the blurb somewhere. But we know that Jamf is used across different industries. And over here in the UK, we obviously work with other schools that use Jamf. But we love to have contacts across the world who we can share ideas with, share innovation with, and share our passion for learning with digital technology as well. Thanks for listening and enjoy the rest of JNUC.